Hola, amigos! Brad Evans here from FTN Fantasy, FTN Daily, and FTNBets.com, alongside the handsome and bearded one, Eliot Crist, alongside the perfectly coiffed Jeff Ratcliffe. This is the FTN Happy Hour. We do this little ritual every single Thursday. This is your alternative to the boring snooze fest that is pregame NFL shows. They don't really talk about fantasy. They don't talk about betting. They just talk in cliches. So we're going to break down all the player props you need to know, go over and under on those tonight. Going to have a pick on the side, pick on the total, and decide what the hell should you do with Aaron Jones. Whether you're setting a DraftKings lineup or a FanDuel lineup or just plugging him into your season-long exercise. We're going to talk to the guys in the know, and me, the jackass, will put the cherry on top of the sundae. Again, FTN Fantasy, FTN Daily, FTNBets.com. We are a friggin' rocket ship right now. We are blasting off to Neptune. We're just getting higher in the sky, a larger, longer parabolic path of just awesomeness as we have all the tools that you could possibly use to get some of that inside information to have success, whether it's on your player props bets or if it's on your daily fantasy or your season-long lineups. And if you use a promo code right now, Evans, EVANS, you get 10% off your subscription today. Be the noise now. Go to FTN Fantasy, FTN Daily, and FTNBets.com. All right, without further ado, let's jump into it here, boys. Jeff, I want to come to you first because the Aaron Jones news right now is kind of rocking fantasy land. The expectation was doubtful for him earlier this week. We didn't think we were going to see him out there. Short week. Obviously, he hasn't played in a couple of games. Has practiced on a very sparingly, very limited basis. Yeah, Jamal Williams is on COVID. Yeah, A.J. Dillon's on the COVID list. I was hoping to see a homecoming for Tyler Ervin prior to San Jose State tonight in his old stomping grounds right there in the South Bay alongside Dexter Williams. But now we are hearing that Aaron Jones is going to be active, though he could have a limited role. You are in a 12-team fantasy league. You have Aaron Jones. Is he must-start material?
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know how Tyler Ervin ever became a thing because I explained this on my Sirius XM show. I literally think nobody knew who he was. He's been a career special teamer who has 10 carries in 6 seasons in the NFL. 10. I tweeted out earlier today his career stats, and people were saying, I literally thought those were weekly stats, not season stats. That was not going to happen. I mean, maybe a couple passes out of the backfield, but we even heard earlier in the week, Aaron Rodgers went out of his way in the presser to talk up Dexter Williams. Didn't talk up Tyler Ervin, talked up Dexter Williams, but that's not going to be a thing either. Here's the issue with Green Bay. It's not Aaron Jones' health. It wasn't Davonte Adams' health. It's the medical staff. The medical staff has held these guys back. So the fact that Jones is going to be out there, we hear people say, oh, well, he may be limited. Okay, that's a quote probably from the Ian Rappaport tweet, but Ian Rappaport wasn't reporting that. He was speculating on that part. So I think Aaron Jones is out there. He's good to go. Now, it isn't the best matchup. San Francisco's run defense is pretty solid, but I think it's season long. There is no way you could fade him tonight.
Interesting. Eliot, anything to add to that? Are you following Jeff's lead, or are you being a little bit more cautious?
No, I agree with Jeff that if you have Aaron Jones in fantasy, I mean, he's minus 205 to score a touchdown tonight. So when he's in, he's definitely going to be in high leverage situations. He's never been a guy that plays 70% of the snaps anyway. I mean, I think when he's in, he's going to be fine, right? Like Jeff's point of, they said unless he's good to play, he's not going to be on the football field. So, but I do think they're going to limit his snaps somewhat. And what I mean by that is maybe something closer to the 40 to 50% range than the 60 to 70% range. This game has kind of been a disaster all around, right? In terms of the COVID list, the injuries. I mean, I'm covering the game today. I went for a run. I pulled a hamstring. I feel like this game is cursed. But Jeff's 100% right. Like Aaron Jones in fantasy is a must start. In DFS, it gets interesting because it depends on ownership, where if people are going to go all in on Aaron Jones, it's a great opportunity to try to gain leverage on a guy who might play less snaps. But if people ignore Aaron Jones, then it's a great time to, push the table on a guy who has multiple touchdown upside.
I'm going to be real. I'm a little bit more trepidatious. I think your assessment of the snap share is spot on, but what is that going to equate to in terms of actual touches? It could be more of a 12 touch kind of game, but 12 touches of Aaron Jones is quite spectacular, right? And knowing how barren the running back position is, yeah, you got to almost plug him in there unless you have viable crutches to lean on. Like if I'm deciding between like Damian Harris, who gets a New York Jets, Elliot, you're the super fan here. Of the
We got to
Jets.
come up with a new phrase than Elliot, the super fan of the New York Jets.
No, isn't that it's tattooed on your chest, isn't it? I mean, it's
No.
Elliot
I've
Jets.
made enough bad tattoo decisions, but the Jets are not tattooed on my body.
Maybe the Tupac, kind of the bridge over the belly button. I mean, that's where I think it resides. But like Damian Harris and Aaron Jones, I think it would be pretty close because Harris should see a vigorous workload. It's obviously a premium matchup because the Jets refuse to tackle anybody. And it would actually give you a reason to watch the Monday night game because there is no other reason. But yeah, I would be a little bit cautious. But I agree to a certain extent with Jeff, and I agree with your assessment too, Elliot, there on the overall snap share being in that 40 to 50% range for Aaron Jones, who is, by the way, guys, officially active. That just came off the wire. He is indeed active for tonight, despite that Nedison calf injury. Elliot, let me come back to you on this. The spread, it's one of the wildest things I've seen all week long, because of the Jimmy G news and then the George Kittle news and the COVID news and everything else in between. And Aaron Jones really isn't swinging the line at all. So it opened at 2.5 early in the week. It then gradually built its way up all the way to 7.5. I'm going to just show you my hand. I grabbed Green Bay at -4. And then when it got to 7.5, I turned around and grabbed San Francisco at +7.5. I'm middling the shit out of this game tonight. It's right now Green Bay -6.5 at a 48.5 total. So tell me if I'm going to win my bets and then give me a game score prediction.
Yeah, so I mean, you and I had a phone call earlier today, and I said I was hoping that it was going to get to 8 or 8.5, and I was waiting for that. And then 10 minutes later, it dropped to 6.5, and I felt like I missed it. But I think 49ers plus 7.5 is really valuable. And you mentioned Aaron Jones not really moving the line, and it's because running backs typically aren't worth half point or point on the line. Now, the 49ers are absolutely missing a ton of valuable pieces. Like, I don't think there's a big drop-off between Jimmy G and Nick Mullins. I do think missing George Kittle is monstrous. Trent Williams is a great tackle. And these wide receivers might be made-up people. I know Kevin White was a big deal like 6 years ago, 7 years
I didn't know he was even still in the league. I had no
still have
idea.
him on a dynasty team.
There you go,
Oh,
Jeff.
my God. Jeff still got him on a dynasty roster.
Jeff's been
Amazing.
holding on to this moment for 6 years, so he's ready for the primetime breakout.
It's all happening. It's all happening.
One thing that I think is really interesting, though, is like we spend a lot of time talking about players and matchups, but I also think sometimes one of the things that goes overlooked is coaching. And, Noah Riddell points this out every week on our Friday night to the window show where we break down all the NFL bets, where he actually has power ratings of coaches and it impacts how he bets on games. And Kyle Shanahan's, he has an outside zone scheme, very similar to Gary Kubiak, who obviously we just saw the Vikings have a great one where they adjusted a lot and had more inside zone last week. Shanahan has dominated this team in the 3 games with San Francisco, scoring over 30 points in all 3. I think San Francisco is going to be close. I think they have a chance to pull off the upset here. Packers have not played very many good teams. The one good defense they played all year, the Bucs, absolutely annihilated them. I think this game's going to be closer. I think it's going to be something like 28-24 Packers. But my favorite bet in terms of this that I got earlier today was I got San Francisco over 20.5 points at +110. That's all the way down to -120 now. But I still think that they're going to be able to move the ball against one of the worst defenses in football. Like, you look at what the Packers do well, and it's Jair Alexander. You look at what the Packers don't do well on defense, and it's everything else, right?
Yeah.
They're the second worst team in pressure. Kevin King is missing this game. They have multiple safeties missing in this game as well, but they've done a terrible job against wide receiver twos. They've done a good job against tight ends, but it's much more inflated by their matchups than how they've actually performed. And they get devastated on the ground, and they can't cover running back. So I think this is a game where Shanahan's going to get creative. We're going to talk about it. I'm not going to spoil Jeff's, one play for the over guy, but I think this team is going to get creative in the middle of the field with the tight end and the running back. And I think the 49ers are going to surprise some people and score some points tonight.
Jeff, what do you got?
I mean, I have this game at 28-21. So, yeah, I mean, just over on that 20.5. I like that call out. I do think the Packers win this. Aaron Rodgers is playing at an MVP level, so we can't really deny that. And I'll tell you, Devonte Adams is going to have his hands full in this one. Jason Verrett, I'm so happy. I'm going to knock on wood like numerous times. Stay healthy because you're so good at football, and it's so much fun watching you play cornerback because we know Jason Verrett's watching right now. But he's been phenomenal. He's been absolutely phenomenal since getting back on the field. They have used him to travel with opposing wide receivers, so I do expect to see at least some of that, if not more than just some of that, for Davonte Adams getting that star treatment tonight. I don't think it matters. Rodgers is just going to throw him the ball regardless. But right. Eliot brings up a great point. Mike Pettine's defense cannot defend the run whatsoever, and he's going up against this generation's best coach of the run game. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, we used to say this about his dad, back in Denver. Put any running back here. He'll be 1,000-yard rusher. Well, it's kind of getting to that point with San Francisco. And because of the injuries, they're putting any running back there. It's going to be interesting tonight. I don't think they have enough ammunition just because of all of this team, think about it. Both your edge rushers are gone. Richard Sherman's not on the field. Your top 4 pass catchers, your top running back and maybe your next 2 after that, your quarterback is not on the field. Your left tackle's not on the field. This is unbelievable. And they're still going to be competitive because, as Eliot said, good coaching. But I mean, yeah, I think it's, it depends on where you got it, Brad, but I actually like the way that you played it. Cause yes, I would have taken Green Bay where you took them. And I always love trying to split the upright. So I think you might be happy with this one.
All right, I'm feeling good about it. I think that's a very fair perspective. It's crazy. This game looks like a preseason Week 4 contest. It really does. It's craziness, madness. Again, I just learned that Kevin White is still on an NFL roster, shockingly enough. I got it 23-16, by the way, guys. So I hopefully am going to hit that bid. I think it's going to be a 7-point margin for Green Bay. I, however, am on the under. Let's get to our Fantasy 5. Let's start with Robert, not Tunyon, but Tunyon as in a bag of Funyuns. And I'm going to come back to you, Jeff, on this one. And you tell me what the old algorithm is saying. 36.5 yards is the line at -112. He's been over this number in 3 of his last 5 games. And a guy that has caught 85.2% of the intended looks for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I do have him hitting the over here. Projections come out at 41 receiving yards. So it's not a monster game. It's not a game where you're going to be just in love with Tunyon for fantasy purposes because he really is a touchdown-dependent fantasy guy. But the cool thing here in season-long fantasy football, there's 1, maybe 2 good fantasy tight ends, and that's it. Yep. That's it now. Right. That's it. Yep. You have Kelsey, who's 1.5 tight ends every single week. Darren Waller's like 1.25 tight ends every week. And then the rest of them, you're just praying for them to get in the end zone. Otherwise, they're probably going to disappoint you. People were disappointed with Hunter Henry last week, 4 for 44, but they loved Jared Cook the week before, 3 for 32, but a touchdown, right? It's so stupid. Tight end, I hate tight end for fantasy. I love me some tight ends. Don't get me wrong. If you play tight end, I love you. 2 ways. You got to block. You got to run routes. That's tough. But for fantasy, it stinks. Tunyon, back end, tight end 1, but I'll take the over.
Yeah, the cupboard is very sparse, very bare right now at tight end. How about you, Sexy Beard? What are you going to do with Robert Tunyon on 36.5 yards over under?
Yeah, I mean, his mama might call him Tunyon. I really want to call him Tunyon, though. Like, sometimes you got to call your name
tomato, you know?
I mean, listen, people call me Christ. We're missing an H, and that name's pretty famous. I feel like we should. But anyway, that's a different debate. I think one important note here for Tunyon is that Jaquiski Tartt was ruled out. And he's been really good against tight ends historically. So I do think this helps him a lot. And I really think that the Jason Verrett thing is really important to note because when he was healthy to start his career, he was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And then he's been battling injuries. But whenever he's been on the football field, he's been dominant. And if you look at Jeff's wide receiver cornerback matchup, it's a 9% target rate. It's 0.11 fantasy points per route run against him. Both of these are top 2 in football. Now, his competition level has not been Devonte Adams, and Devonte Adams is going to get his. But there's the difference between Devonte Adams getting his and Devonte Adams getting 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, right? So let's say that Adams gets his, because he's going to see 10 targets. He's only seen less than 10 targets twice since.
Over. More than that. Over.
100%. I'm being, the lame square where I have to pick round numbers, and I'm not going to But anyway, he's gotten double-digit targets in all games but 2 since week 3 last year. One of those was the Lions this year where he left early. He's going to get his volume. But we've also seen a lot of Davonte Adams games where he has 8 or 9 catches for 80 yards, right? And so if they're able to limit him somewhat, and it's not the monstrous Davonte Adams game, it means the ball is going to have to go someplace else. And with no Tart, you would think that Tonyan has an opportunity to have a pretty good game tonight. So I'm with you, Brad. I'm with you, Jeff. I'm actually going to, now that Tart is officially rolled out, as soon as we get off the show, I'll officially place the wager, and I'm going to be on Tonyan's over 36.5 tonight.
Yeah, and I think the juice is still decent, or at least
minus 105 at MGM right now.
Fantastic. And I think at DraftKings it's still a minus 112. So it's one of those lines that hasn't gotten juice out of control. I think a lot of people are ignoring it, but I like Tonyan quite a bit. We'll see. I don't know if we've seen yet whether or not Alan Lazard is going to be activated for this game. I know we've been practicing on a limited basis, but even if he is in uniform, you'd expect him on some sort of pitch count tonight. He is out. Okay, well, that helps out Tonyan even more because he is really the number 2 option for Aaron Rodgers right now because MVS is just completely unreliable. And I'm also over on Robert Tonyan. Again, a guy that is number 1 in average target separation among tight ends so far this season with over 11 yards per target. Let's move on to number 4 in the Fantasy 5, gentlemen. It's Nick Mullins, and this line has changed. So when I sent the script a couple hours ago, it was still Mullins 210.5 pass yards at DraftKings Sportsbook. And one of the great features we have at ftnbets.com is the prop shop. And if you would have typed in Mullins earlier today, and I actually posted this on Twitter and did a screen grab of it, the differentiation between Mullins at DraftKings at 210.5 and FanDuel was remarkable. It was like 225.5. So you had like a literal 15-yard difference between these two guys at 2 different books. And that's what the prop shop is there for. It's there to try to mine and unearth these extraordinary line values before they get juice out of control or they change. Unfortunately, this line got juice out of control and it changed at DraftKings. So Elliot, I'm going to come back to you on this. It's now at 219.5 at DraftKings, which I still believe is the low odds on the totem pole, or the best odds that are out there, in other words. What do you do here, over or under?
Yeah, so MGM has it at 214.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, you're 100% right. And in terms of a rule of thumb, if you want to bet unders, you probably want to go to FanDuel. And if you want to bet overs, you probably want to go to MGM in terms of how often their lines are different. And DraftKings kind of, as Jeff likes to say, splits the uprights. I think Nick Mullins is going to be effective in this game, but I think it's a pretty accurate line. I would pass. The line I have more interest in from Nick Mullins is over 1.5 touchdowns. Because that plus 145, again, I think the Niners are going to be able to score some points here. And why I like Hasty, and I'm going to get yelled at by you guys in the next segment, and I'm looking forward to it. I think Mullins is going to be efficient in this game, and I think they are going to get creative, whether it's Kyle Juszczyk, Jordan Reed, Ross Dwelly, any of these other made-up players that we're talking about, right?
Trent Taylor, yeah. Richie James.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Austin Waller, like it's Trent Taylor is a real person who's actually played NFL snaps this year, so I do want to give him credit. But on a serious note, like I think that Mullins' efficiency in the red zone has an opportunity to play out here, and I would rather have the plus 145 on over 1.5 touchdowns than mess with his yards.
Yeah, that is spicy on the over on the 1.5 touchdowns. What does the projections from the guru say there, Jeff Ratcliffe?
Well, I will say that the player props tool that we have, my player props tool at ftnbets.com, the number 1 bet on the board is over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Nick Mullins. And let's like just throw this out here. I'm not, it's not like he's definitely over lock of the week, that I'm
my 1-900 number. Yeah.
It just comes down to the fact that the odds are so favorable that you do not have to hit this bet 52.4% of the time. You got to hit this bet like 41% of the time, and you're going to be profitable over the long haul. So that's what I love about it. And definitely, a great resource there if you like to get into player props, because I have them all broken down by the betting level, like, basically my confidence level. Yep. So in terms of the passing yards, I think he does go over. I think that line initially was too low. Nick Mullins honestly looked better than Jimmy Garoppolo last week. It's like Mullins got out there and all of a sudden things started to happen. Now, one of those things was George Kittle, going up, making a catch, and then getting hurt. But things started to happen. He sees the field seemingly a little bit better. He has a little bit more, ability to make those tougher throws. It feels like, but he's throwing to nobody. So that is going to be the challenge here. And as Eliot said, Jair Alexander, he is phenomenal. Like the rest of the defense, not so much, but there's a fair argument to be made that he is the best cornerback in the league right now, especially with what he's done since week one. Week one was a little shaky against Adam Thielen, but otherwise he's been awesome. So I think that line's pretty good. But I also I'm excited to see this here because we can't rule out that Nick Mullins takes the job from Jimmy G, or if Jimmy G even comes back for that matter.
It's good, right?
It could be a 6-week injury. Well, guys, bold prediction. Here's what's going to happen. The Bears going to trade for Jimmy G because they're morons. So that's the inevitability here. Chicago guy, makes sense. They'll take on the contract because Ryan Pace. I am over on the 210.5. I would barely creep over the 219.5. Your window of opportunity may have closed there a little bit, but you look at what Green Bay has done this season. They've given up 6.7 YPA, 244.4 yards per game through the air, and the 1.7 touchdowns per game. That really speaks to you guys in the over the 1.5 touchdowns. Very good chance he could get those 2 TDs. And the only 2 guys that have gone under this proposed total, Kirk Cousins and Tom Brady. And remember that Cousins game last week, it was wind driven, it was run heavy, it was all Dalvin Cook. And then that Brady game, Tampa Bay just came out and DDT Diamond Dallas Page style, the opposition and the Buccaneers, the Green Bay Packers. So Brady only threw it 27 times. So I think Mullins is going to get over, and I'd like to call. I have not locked in that over on 1.5 touchdowns, but I'm doing it now based on your gentleman's recommendation. All right, now let's get the gloves on. Ding, 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 ding. I'm going to come to the defender of the under here, which I think he is, because that's where I'm at on JaMychal Hasty, and that is Jeff Ratcliffe. And then we will just give the floor to Ellie, and he can just spout off. It's 67.5 rush yards. I got this at -112 at DraftKings. It's now at -130. Jeff, you spoke to the vulnerability, and it's a massive one for the Green Bay Packers in defending the run. They don't do it. They refuse to. They're allergic to it. They're socially distancing from it. They've given up 169.1 total yards per game and 4.66 yards per carry, the running back position, and also 14 total touchdowns. Now, in full transparency, I have Hasty on an anytime TD at +140. However, I am under on the 67.5 rush yards. Are you with me?
I am. It's close. In redoing the numbers, I have him at 62 rushing yards. So it's close. He's going to be used. My reluctancy here is, as Twitter has told me, thank you, Twitter, I have no idea what I'm talking about with the 49ers backfield this year. Every game, it's like the Chargers. Every game you think and then Kyle Shanahan does something else. It was the Jeff Wilson game. Last week, it almost made sense, right? It was like, Hasty's the early down back and McKinnon's the passing down back. And I would like to say that that's how it's going to play out in this one. If it does play out in that way, though, I don't know if the game script is favorable enough to get him up over that number. So I actually have him under there. I have him under on 83.5 combined yards as well, because I don't know how much he's going to be used in the passing game. It's good. It's a good line. It's close. And I like the fact that it is actually juiced to the over. So you get a favorable +100 on the under there. At least I have it at DraftKings earlier today. So I'm taking the under.
Oh, interesting. All right, Elliot. The floor is yours, amigo.
So first, I would like to apologize. Jaquiski Tartt is actually playing tonight. And fake news tweet got me. In terms of all the fake news tweets, it's probably one of the lesser ones in the last week, but that's a story for a different show. I grabbed Hasty over 62.5 on FanDuel today. So maybe we can all win, right?
It could middle. It honestly could middle, to be honest.
And it's interesting because I also grabbed Hasty over 11.5 receiving yards. The Packers are 32nd DVOA covering the running back. This team has allowed more fantasy points than any other. Obviously, Dalvin Cook shot that number up, but they can't cover backs and they can't stop the run. They've also allowed the most touchdowns to running backs this year. It's 14 through the first 8 weeks of the season. So, Brad, you've got a good shot on the plus money for Hasty. It's one thing that's really interesting in the line movement before I talk about the matchup is that Hasty's, if you look at his number on DraftKings today, it started as -134 on the over. On the under, and it's actually completely shifted to the over of 67.5, where now it's -112. So money has come in on him. And The 11.5 has stayed steady. That has moved, but the 83.5 is now minus 134 on the over. And the interesting thing is, right, how much does Jarrick McKinnon play? Because there's talk that he might be a little bit more limited. It's a Thursday game after playing Sunday. We've already seen games where we thought we were going to load up on Jarrick McKinnon, and then he has tired legs.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, like that's a tough situation. So Jeff, I don't blame you for not getting the 49ers running backs right. I don't blame you for not seeing Tremaine Pope coming. That I'm going to go ahead and give you a pass on that, even if Twitter won't, for not being psychic about seeing third string running backs coming out of nowhere. Also, Twitter, relax. It's okay. No one expected that. But more importantly, I just think this 49ers team, despite the fact that they're missing Trent Williams, is going to have the advantage up front. I think they're going to rely on the run game with the weapons that they have, and they're going to run a lot. I would take Hasty over 15.5 carries. We looked at the game last year. I think they had, 254 rushing yards in the NFC Championship. You look at the game before that, they put up 30-plus points and dominating the run game. And the game before that with Kyle Shanahan, they had 2 running backs go over 60-plus yards. So I just think that this scheme for Kyle Shanahan, like, I'm buying in. I'm buying in that he is going to out-coach Mike Penn in this game, and he is going to dominate in the run game. And I'm buying in on the running backs don't matter. Now, I don't think that's a real statement, and I think it gets blown out of proportion. But in terms of for Kyle Shanahan, we've seen Jeff Wilson. Raheem Mostert was not, like, he wasn't who anyone cared about a couple of years ago, right? Was he a 6th-round pick or undrafted? I forget. I know he went to Mizzou, but Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, Jarrick McKinnon, like, these guys aren't big names, and they've all had a lot of success in the system. And I anticipate that Hasty will play 60+% of the snaps and have similar success tonight.
Well, he's a great one cut and go back. That's what the zone blocking scheme focuses on. So he's a perfect fit for it because he gets downhill in a hurry, and he's a very aggressive, and he finishes his runs. Aggressive runner, downhill guy, and he's got to lower the pad and drive through the contact. I think we both win. I'm going to predict it right now, guys. 65 rush yards. There you go. Winner, chicken dinner for you and for me.
Sign me up. Let's end it. Once he gets to 63, like, we'll just all stop. We'll just start chanting, "Stop the count," and then we'll have a great night.
Exactly. Like, in a country that is divided, this is the compromise. This is the great uniter that can bring us all together. JaMychal Hasty, middling. That's it. All right, let's move on to Davonte Adams. Ellie, I'm going to come back to you. 7.5 receptions. Seems aggressive. I locked it in at plus 110 on the over earlier today because I think he's going to see like 15 targets tonight. And I know you guys have already dabbled on this, kind of touched on this a little bit. He is going to be force-fed. He's so damn good in his separation skills. And, yeah, he's going to see a lot of Jason Verrett, but Jason Verrett typically locks in on one side. Now, Jeff said, he has shadowed at times, which he has occasionally this year in instances, but not necessarily the full complement of snaps. I think Adams, if he gets any piece of Emmanuel Mosley one-on-one, Aaron Rodgers is going to recognize that and immediately throw in his general direction. I think this is an 8, 9, 10 catch game. We'll see about the yardage. Will they go full DK Metcalf or DeAndre Hopkins, who each had monster games against this unit earlier this year? We'll see. But I do like the over on the 7.5 catches at plus 110 is what I got it at. I think it's at a minus juice now. So what do you say there, Elliot?
I think you got it at the right price.
Yeah.
Because I agree that he's going to, I would probably project him at like 12 targets in this game. I think Verrett's going to win some battles, and I think Adams will win some battles. And, Verrett, I think, is 55% on one side and 45% on the other. Again, using the stats from Jeff Ratcliffe's fantastic wide receiver cornerback matchup tool, which is probably the simplest way you can break down the matchups. And one interesting thing is that he's played 0 snaps this year in the slot. Like, you can't play less than 0, right? I mean, but Devonte Adams plays 28% of his snaps in the slot. So if Verrett is winning the battle, they can get him away from him. So I like him to get 8+ receptions in this one. I would have really liked it at plus 110. At this point now, I think it's minus 115 certain places. I would pass on that one. I think Adams' line is set right, to be completely honest. But at the plus money you got it, I think that was a fantastic bet.
Jeff, are you with Elliot on his viewpoint that plus money, smart money on the over Davonte Adams 7.5 catches?
Yeah. And that's a monstrous line. We rarely see 7.5 as a line, but I buy it. I actually have him projected at 8.2 for this game. And I agree. It's all target volume. Now with Jason Verrett, he has shadowed in 3 of the last 4 games. So that's really key to note. In week 4 against the Eagles, he shadowed John Hightower. Now they were prioritizing Hightower in that game. I don't know why, but they were.
That's why they were prioritizing.
He's the king of A. He will go down as the highest ADOT guy in NFL history.
Right.
It's unbelievable. Then in week 5, Devontae Parker. Okay, that makes sense. In week 6, he actually traveled. It depended on who was on the outside. So he was traveling with Cooper Kupp. He was traveling with Bob Woods. I think there is a good chance that he does travel on the outside with Adams. But that's the beauty. And I get a lot of these questions on Twitter, et cetera. People are like, well, why, when you say it's shadow, why isn't it 100%? Well, there's a couple instances. Sometimes corners will only shadow on the outside. So if you kick to the slot, you're not going to see that receiver. And unless you're Chip Kelly, when he coached the 49ers, you move your receivers around in the NFL. I mean, Dallas may want to get that memo, but regardless, you have that opportunity. And then sometimes defenses just get caught, out of position. And, we've seen this time and time again where, the receiver gets shut down in the shadow, but he still has an entire week's worth of fantasy production in like the 30% of snaps that he's not in the shadow. So I'm not worried at all. I agree 100%. I think you're smart to get this early, Brad. Over 7.5, hammer in it.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you so much for giving me the vote of confidence there, gentlemen. All right, let's get to our final player here in the Fantasy 5. It is one Jarrick McKinnon, and then we're going to have a bonus selection. And I think that we all might be on, honestly. But let's get to McKinnon first. This is another one of those, sports betting 101, folks. If you're just watching this, if you're just new to FTN bets, maybe you're just new to betting in general, you want to get in early as you can, because the action sways, the lines can swell, the juice can get blown out of proportion. Case in point, Jarrick McKinnon receiving yards. I rolled out of bed this morning from my tequila and red wine induced haze. Bad combo. I don't recommend it for anybody. And I was like, oh man, I wonder if they put the lines back up, because they all blacked out with the COVID rumors and whether or not this game was going to be played. Maybe it was going to be rescheduled. And the only thing that DraftKings had posted were receiving yards. And I think I got in like literally within the first 10 minutes that they had been placed back up and gone live. Jarrick McKinnon was one of those names at 21.5 yards. Immediately logged in, immediately hammered it. It has now jumped to 28.5. You get a 7-point swing on a receiving yards prop for a running back. Rare that you see that, but it's a 28.5 right now. Jeff, I'm going to come back to you on this first, and then we'll go to Eliot. What do you say? Over, under? Are you still chasing the over on McKinnon 28.5? His snap share last week was at 52.4%. Hopefully, it'll be in that same range. He'll actually generate some meaningful touches tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to, but I actually do have the under on this one in the player props tool, and the under on his total yards at 59.5 as well. I do think you were smart to take the over, though. I think tonight is the night of splitting the uprights, so that means there's going to be all field goals. Start both kickers and showdown. But I think you make a tremendous point, and then we should build off of that point as well. So it pays to be early. But keep in mind that there are lines that keep going up. Like if you went on there first thing this morning, you probably didn't see that Jarrick McKinnon rushing and receiving yards prop. That was put up in the afternoon. And there's now an Aaron Jones line, for example, that wasn't around earlier today. So it pays to keep going back as well. Keep checking on your books, keep checking on the lines, and don't be afraid. Don't hesitate to pounce. And you get some nice values. And Eliot has said this before, and a lot of our guys think this way. Even if I might lose, like say Brad loses on that bet, he's still, because he gained that value, I take that as a win, even though I'm not making the money. The process is working, and that's the idea.
I only think in dollars and concrete terms, but I appreciate that, Jeff.
I'm hanky over here. I trust the process, baby.
Yeah, you're feeding the ego, man. I like it. Eliot, what do you think at the 28.5 receiving yards line on Jarrick McKinnon? And then just to add a cherry on top of this, what do you think about him in DFS if you're playing Showdown tonight?
So before I get to Jarrick McKinnon, I want to echo Jeff's point of it's not that if you get closing value one time, you're now some winning better, right? And like, obviously, listen, at the end of the day, the thing that matters most is profit, right? Results versus process It's process over results for an individual outcome, but for long term, right? If you've been doing this for 2 years and you're like, my process is great, but all you ever do is lose bets, your process is not good, right? So like, just to be clear, Brad, and I get it, your dollars and cents, but like when you tail one of us, right? All of us are up units this year. Basically, everyone in FTN bets on NFL is up units this year. It does not mean that one individual bet is guaranteed to hit, right? So when you beat lines and you get the positive closing value, right? Like it's fantastic for long-term growth of your bankroll. Like that's what that means. It doesn't necessarily mean your individual bet's going to hit. However, you hitting 7 yards on a receiver back that's absurd, man. Like
really
you don't see that. You don't see that kind of line movement. You saw it go this morning from -112 to -140 to 28.5. And you got on that, Noah got on that, and Kevin Adams got on that. Over 21.5, I'd be on all day long. 28.5, I think that's the right line, and it's a complete pass for me. Honestly, though, I think Hasty being cheaper than McKinnon gives me, and I think he has more touchdown equity in the offense. I have more interest in Hasty than I do in McKinnon in DFS tonight.
Yeah, and again, just this speaks to the prop shop and its value to users out there. And by the way, this is a free tool, folks, at FTN Bets. You can also get it at ftnfantasy.com. Just go to ftnbets.com or ftnfantasy.com/prop-shop. So as soon as these curate, because they do instantaneously, as soon as they're live on a site that we're scraping and we're pulling from, they go into that tool. So you know immediately where the best values are, and you can, jump from our site to the book and place that wager. So I'm telling you, you got to have that thing bookmarked. It is just an invaluable service, and we're offering to you for free because out of the kindness of our heart. Jeff, I'm going to come to you for this because we're all in this together. You have your special bonus time player prop because you were like really excited about it. You're being coy about it. You go like, I have one over special play tonight that I can't wait to share with you guys. And then you dropped it in there, and I was like, oh, yeah, I hammered that too. And Elliot's like, oh, yeah, I jumped on that as well. So share with our audience the obscure player prop that is out there that we're all digging.
And let's be clear, I wasn't trying to be coy. I wasn't even saying it's obscure, to be honest with you. It's just I like props that all you need is one play to hit. So it's a one play special. And that tonight is Kyle Juszczyk on the over on 10.5 receiving yards. That to me is beautiful. I have 12.5 in some places as well. You have you're going to find a few different Juszczyks right now on the player prop tool. FanDuel 12.5 -110. So I don't even care if it's 13.5. I'll still play it because he catches one freaking ball, he's going to be over. And
he
that's
does it every game.
Needs.
He does it literally every game. It's one catch. And it's like for 15 yards.
Yep, exactly. It's easy. It's easy. So I'll take the gimme putt on that one.
All right, I'll take it as well. Do not ask me to spell his name. I cannot do it. I can't do it. I'm too much of a simpleton to figure it out. That's why it's in the spell check, and it corrects me every single time. Ellie, you're on this, right?
Yes, I am on this. And one of the great things about the prop shop is you're allowed to spell Kyle space J, and then it comes up, and then there's no more guessing game. Our editor, Daniel Kelly, said, I'm very proud of you for spelling Juszczyk right today. But I will not lie that I looked it up, copy and pasted it whenever I needed to write it for my Showdown articles because I was not ready to attempt it. But I'm with you guys. I think that one's a great one. One of my bonus props, and I don't think he's particularly good, but is MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I took him over 27.5. That's climbed up to -143 now. And I grabbed him at over 27.5 and to score a touchdown, which is 5-1 over on FanDuel. Those correlated player props, I think, are great. I think if he gets a touchdown, he's going over 27.5. He gets those downfield passes. And again, it goes to, I believe in Jason Verrett. I think he's going to limit Adams. And I just want to be real clear before someone grabs this clip and throws it back in my face when Adams goes for 90 yards tonight. I am not saying Davonte Adams doesn't have a good game. I'm saying I don't think he breaks the slate and goes for 10 for 156 and 3. And Aaron Rodgers right now, his passing or his pass attempt prop is 37.5. And I used the FTN splits tool, and I found a really interesting thing that since 2017, when he goes over 37 pass attempts, he averages 45. And when he goes under, he averages 28. So they're not that he basically chucks or they get conservative pretty quickly. So if he does throw that many passes, even if Adams has 15 targets, That's still 30 targets for other people. And I think Mosley is the guy to attack, not Barrett. So, and I know Mosley's numbers are a little inflated because DK Metcalf absolutely shredded him.
Oh, God, killed him. Absolutely killed him last week. And I'll give you a bonus play. I like Ross Dwelly on a touchdown prop at plus 350 if you're looking for a long shot, because Mullins loves to throw to his tight ends. And that is a wrap on this edition of the FTN Happy Hour. Again, check out FTN Fantasy, FTN Daily, FTNBets.com. Use that promo code Evans, EVANS, to get 10% off all of our fantastic tools and content. Lock and load us right now. For Eliot Crist, for Jeff Ratcliffe, I'm Brad Evans. Cheers to you. Oh, I'm almost out of tequila again. And good luck tonight.